The moment that changed everything. The grand hall shimmered with golden light, its elegant chandeliers casting a soft glow over the gathered guests. Everything about the evening spoke of perfection: polished marble floors, flowing champagne, and whispers of admiration drifting through the air. It was meant to be a celebration of love, a moment everyone would remember for its beauty. But for Daniel, sitting silently in his wheelchair near the center of the room, it felt like a stage where he no longer belonged. Just a year ago, he had been different. Confident, strong, the kind of man who walked into a room and naturally drew attention. But life had shifted in an instant after the accident. One reckless driver, one irreversible moment, and everything he once was seemed to fade away. Now, as he adjusted the cuff of his suit, he couldn't help but feel like a shadow of himself. Then she appeared. Sophia. Dressed in a soft white gown that flowed like a whisper, she moved through the crowd with quiet grace. Conversations hushed as she passed, her presence commanding attention without effort. But her eyes, those deep, searching eyes, weren't on the crowd. They were fixed on Daniel. His breath caught as she approached him. Each step she took felt heavier than the last, not for her, but for him. Questions flooded his mind. Why was she coming here? What could she possibly want now? She stopped right in front of him. For a brief moment, neither of them spoke. Then, gently, she placed her hand on his chest. The simple touch sent a wave of emotion through him, memories, pain, longing, all colliding at once. It had been months since they had truly spoken. Months since everything had fallen apart. You didn't think I'd let you disappear like this, did you? Sophia said softly, her voice steady but filled with something deeper, something unresolved. Daniel looked away, his jaw tightening. This isn't your world anymore, Sophia, he replied quietly. You should be out there, enjoying your life. Not stuck here with someone like me. Her expression changed instantly. Someone like you, she repeated, her voice now edged with disbelief. Is that really what you think you've become? He didn't answer. Instead, he stared at the floor, avoiding her gaze. The silence between them grew heavy, almost suffocating. Sophia leaned closer, her face now just inches from his. Look at me, she whispered. Reluctantly, he did, and what he saw shook him. There was no pity in her eyes. No hesitation, only determination. You think that chair defines you? She continued. That it erased everything you are. Because if you do, then you've already given up. And I know you better than that. Daniel felt something stir inside him, something he had buried deep beneath layers of doubt and fear. But he shook his head. You don't understand, he said. Things are different now. I'm different. No, she replied firmly. You're scared. Her words hit harder than he expected. The truth he had been avoiding, the reality he refused to face, it was all laid bare in a single sentence. The room around them seemed to fade away. The music, the voices, the laughter, it all became distant noise as the two of them stood locked in a moment that felt bigger than everything else. Sophia's hand remained over his heart. I didn't come here out of sympathy, she said softly. I came because I refused to lose you, not like this. Daniel swallowed hard, emotions rising in his chest. For the first time in months, he didn't feel invisible. But just as he was about to speak, a voice from across the hall called Sophia's name. Both of them turned. A tall man stood there, watching them closely. And in that instant, Daniel realized. This night wasn't just about the past. It was about to change their future. Forever. The truth between them. The voice that called Sophia's name cut through the air like a blade. Sophia. Both she and Daniel turned at the same time. Standing across the hall was a tall, sharply dressed man, his expression tense, his eyes locked directly on them. The atmosphere shifted instantly, what had once felt intimate now felt exposed. Daniel noticed the way Sophia's hand stiffened slightly against his chest. You should go, he said quietly, his voice controlled but distant again. He's waiting. Sophia didn't move. Let him wait, she replied under her breath. But Daniel shook his head. No, that's not how your world works anymore, remember. There was a trace of bitterness in his tone now. People like him don't like being ignored. Her eyes snapped back to his. And since when do you decide what my world is? Before Daniel could answer, the man began walking toward them, his steps measured but firm. With each step, the tension grew thicker, heavier, until it felt like the entire room was silently watching. When he finally reached them, he didn't look at Daniel first. His attention was entirely on Sophia. "I've been looking everywhere for you," he said, forcing a polite smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. "The guests are asking for you." Sophia straightened slightly, but her voice remained calm. "I'm busy." That answer clearly wasn't what he expected. His gaze finally shifted to Daniel, briefly scanning him, his wheelchair, his posture, before returning to Sophia. There was something dismissive in that glance, something that didn't sit right. "And this is more important?" the man asked, his tone tightening. Daniel felt it, that familiar sting, the quiet judgment he had grown used to over the past year. He clenched his jaw but said nothing. Sophia, however, stepped closer to Daniel. "Yes," she said firmly. "It is." The man's expression hardened. "Sophia," he lowered his voice, "we've talked about this. You can't keep holding onto things that people are not things, Adrian," she cut him off sharply. So that was his name. Adrian exhaled slowly, clearly trying to maintain composure. "I'm just saying you need to think about your future." Daniel let out a quiet, almost humorless laugh. "He's right," he said suddenly. Sophia turned to him, startled. "What?" Daniel avoided her eyes again. "You should think about your future. And it doesn't include me." "Stop doing that," she said, her voice breaking slightly. "Stop deciding things for me." "I'm not deciding," he replied. "I'm accepting reality." The words hung in the air like a final verdict. Sophia stared at him, hurt flashing across her face. "Reality," she repeated. "Or fear?" Daniel didn't respond this time. Because deep down, he knew she was right. Adrian stepped in again, sensing the shift. "Sophia, this isn't the place for this conversation," he said, more firmly now. "Come with me." For a moment, it seemed like she might refuse again. Her hand, still resting against Daniel's chest, slowly curled into a fist. Then, with visible reluctance, she pulled it away. The absence of her touch felt colder than he expected. "I'll come," she said quietly. Daniel's heart sank, but he didn't show it. As she turned to leave, she paused just for a second. Without looking back, she spoke softly, just loud enough for him to hear. "This isn't over, Daniel." Then she walked away beside Adrian, disappearing into the crowd that eagerly welcomed her back. Daniel sat there, unmoving. The noise of the hall rushed back all at once, the music, the laughter, the clinking of glasses. But none of it mattered. All he could feel was the emptiness where her hand had been. And the echo of her words. "This isn't over." For the first time in months, something inside him refused to stay silent. A question. A dangerous one. What if she's right? Daniel looked up, his eyes searching through the crowd where Sophia had vanished. And in that moment, he made a decision. He wasn't going to let this be the end. Not without a fight. The fight within. The crowd swallowed Sophia the moment she walked away, but Daniel's eyes stayed fixed on the spot where she had disappeared. The music grew louder, the laughter sharper, yet everything around him felt distant, like he was watching the world from behind glass. "This isn't over." Her words echoed in his mind, refusing to fade. For months, Daniel had convinced himself that letting her go was the right thing. That pushing her away was an act of love, not weakness. But now it felt like something else. Cowardice. His hands tightened against the armrests of his wheelchair. His chest felt heavy, like something long buried was trying to break free. "Sir, would you like anything?" a waiter asked politely, appearing beside him with a tray of drinks. Daniel barely looked up. "No." The waiter nodded and moved on, disappearing just as quickly as he had come. Daniel exhaled slowly, running a hand through his hair. His thoughts were a storm, memories of who he used to be, the man he had become, and the man Sophia still believed he could be. "You're scared." He clenched his jaw. "Maybe I am," he muttered under his breath. But fear had already taken enough from him. Across the hall, he finally spotted her again. Sophia stood beside Adrian, surrounded by guests, smiling politely, playing the role expected of her. But Daniel noticed the small things, the tension in her shoulders, the way her smile didn't quite reach her eyes. She wasn't okay. And suddenly, neither was he. Before he could stop himself, Daniel pushed his hands against the wheels. The chair moved forward. It was a small motion, almost insignificant, but to him, it felt like crossing a line he had drawn months ago. He hesitated. Doubt crept in instantly. "What are you doing?" a voice inside him whispered. "You'll only embarrass yourself." You don't belong there anymore. His grip loosened. The chair stopped. For a moment, it seemed like that was it. That the fear had won again. Then he remembered the way Sophia had looked at him. Not with pity. With belief. Daniel inhaled deeply, his fingers tightening once more. No, he said quietly. Not this time. And he pushed forward again. This time, he didn't stop. Each movement of the wheels felt heavier than the last, not because of the effort, but because of what it meant. He wasn't just moving across a room. He was stepping out of the prison he had built for himself. A few people turned to look as he passed. Some with curiosity, others with quiet sympathy. Daniel noticed, but for the first time, it didn't paralyze him. He kept going, closer, closer, until he was just a few feet away from Sophia. She hadn't seen him yet. Adrian was speaking to a group of guests, his voice confident, controlled. Sophia stood beside him, nodding occasionally, her attention divided, but distant. Daniel swallowed hard. This was it. Every instinct told him to turn back, to retreat to the safety of silence. But something stronger pushed him forward. Sophia. His voice wasn't loud, but it was enough. She froze. Slowly, she turned. And when her eyes met his, everything else faded away. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Then Adrian noticed. His expression immediately tightened as he saw Daniel. Is there something you need? He asked, his tone polite, but edged with irritation. Daniel didn't look at him. Not this time. I need to talk to her, he said, his voice steady. Adrian let out a small, disbelieving laugh. I don't think this is the right time. I wasn't asking you. The words landed harder than expected. Sophia's eyes widened slightly. Adrian's jaw clenched. The surrounding guests fell silent, sensing the tension. For the first time since the accident, Daniel wasn't backing down. Sophia stepped forward before Adrian could respond. It's okay, she said softly. Then, turning to Daniel, she added, let's talk. Relief flickered across his face, but only for a second. Because as she moved closer, he realized something else. This conversation would change everything. The choice that defined them. The noise of the hall faded as Sophia stepped away from the crowd, leading Daniel toward a quieter corner near the tall windows. Outside, the night sky stretched endlessly, calm and still, so different from the storm inside both of them. For a moment, neither spoke. They simply looked at each other, as if trying to understand everything that had changed, and everything that hadn't. You came back, Sophia said softly, breaking the silence. Daniel let out a slow breath. I almost didn't. She gave a faint, sad smile. That sounds like you. He nodded, accepting it. Yeah, it does. There was no anger in her eyes now. Only honesty. Then why did you? She asked. Daniel looked down at his hands, resting on the wheels of his chair. For so long, he had seen them as a symbol of everything he had lost. But now, they felt different. Because I realized something, he said quietly. I wasn't protecting you by pushing you away. I was protecting myself, from feeling weak, from being seen like this. Sophia stepped closer. And now, he looked up at her, his eyes clearer than they had been all night. Now I'm tired of hiding. Those words carried weight. Truth. Change. Sophia's expression softened. That's all I ever wanted, she whispered. Not the man you used to be, but the man who wouldn't give up. Daniel swallowed hard. I thought you deserved better. And I thought you trusted me enough to let me decide that, she replied gently. Silence settled again, but this time, it wasn't heavy. It was understanding. Across the hall, Adrian watched them, his patience clearly gone. He took a step forward, but Sophia raised her hand slightly without even turning. Please, she said calmly. Give me a moment. For the first time, Adrian stopped. Back by the window, Daniel gathered his courage. I don't know what the future looks like anymore, he admitted. I don't know if I can be who I was. Sophia shook her head. You don't have to be. She reached for his hand, holding it firmly. Just be who you are now, and let me be part of it. Daniel felt something shift inside him, something steady, something real. Not the confidence he once had, but something deeper. Acceptance. He tightened his grip on her hand. It won't be easy. I know, she said. People will talk. They already do. I'll have bad days. Then we'll face them together. Her words weren't promises of perfection. They were promises of truth. Daniel looked at her, really looked this time, not as someone he needed to protect from himself, but as someone strong enough to stand beside him. And for the first time since everything changed, he allowed himself to believe it. Slowly, he nodded. "Okay," he said. That single word held more meaning than anything else he could have said. Sophia smiled, not the polite smile she had worn all evening, but a real one. Warm, certain. Behind them, Adrian turned away, understanding the decision without needing to hear it. The future he had imagined with Sophia quietly slipped away, replaced by one built on something he couldn't control. Something real. As the music swelled again and the night carried on, Daniel and Sophia remained by the window, no longer separated by fear, but united by choice. Not the choice of a perfect life, but the choice to face an imperfect one, together. Moral of the story. True love is not about perfection or convenience. It is about acceptance, courage, and standing beside someone. Not because life is easy, but because they are worth the fight.